Well, thank you for being here. Seriously, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. You ready to get started?
Yeah.
Cool. So I usually just start with asking, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up, what your childhood was like, maybe how you got started with music.
Okay. Well, I grew up in suburban Rochester, New York, a town called Fairport. And my parents were both school teachers in the Fairport School District.
Hmm.
My mom was there. My dad's gone now, but he taught at the junior high level, and my mom was an elementary education specialist.
Cool.
And and so my brother and I grew up there, went to school there, and in elementary school, I actually had a fortuitous experience where one of the little kids in I think maybe second or third grade brought in a drum and showed it, and I just had to have it. And so I like I asked for a drum set for Christmas. So when I was in third grade, I got a drum set from the Sears catalog
Nice.
for Christmas. Yeah, and I just uh, played it like crazy. And it was actually the following fall I started taking lessons. And I started at a local music store, and I had a really nice teacher there who was a high school student, and I got into the band program. My district had a super good band program. It was just super lucky for me because even the surrounding suburbs didn't put as much resource into their band program. So it was just super great. But I wasn't selected at first because so many people wanted to play drums. They gave a test to select people for the program there's an old test called the Seashore Test. I have no idea why it was called that. I'm kind of guessing maybe from the look on your face, it's not really used very much anymore. But at the time, it was a big thing. And I was just felt like, well, I'm not going to do well enough on the test to get chosen. So I just put down that I wasn't interested.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But it was all turned out good because my dad, working in the district, was friends with the music people, just outside of any involvement by me. So he asked Mr. Sherrill, who was super nice guy, and he said, "Hey, my daughter plays drums. Do you think you could just listen to her, and do you think you could maybe give her some advice?" And so he was like, "Oh yeah, of course, I'd be glad to." So I met with him and I played for him, and I said, "Hey, do you think I could someday get into the band?" And he said, "How about today?"
Nice.
So he was really nice. Yeah. And my parents at the time, they said, much later, they said, "Oh, I'm sure," they thought at the time, like, our friend is just, being nice to us. But then they saw that I was into it, and I was super into it. And so after 2 years of studying at school with Mr. Sherrill, he recommended that I get involved with the Eastman Preparatory Department. So I did. That summer, John Beck was actually still teaching kids in the summertime.
Oh,
and
nice.
So I got a chance to study with him at age like 11 or 12, I think. Yeah, and for the summer. And then I went into the regular preparatory department in seventh grade. And I studied with a percussionist named Ernest Muskies, he's now in the Syracuse Sinfonietta now. It used to be called the Syracuse Symphony. But so I studied with him. Then he was in grad school. Then I studied with Dave Mancini, who was in grad school at the time. I studied with Gordon Stout, who was in grad school at the time.
Wow.
So I just had this a list of people who were super nice to me and encouraging me. And then when starting in 10th grade, I think, they hired Ruth Kahn, who was at the time percussionist in the Rochester Philharmonic. So they went with I mean, the others obviously are super great professionals, but at the time they were students. So they went and hired Ruth, and so I got a chance to study with her for 3 years before I started college. So I was very influenced by the Eastman School all growing up, and then I did my undergrad there.
Nice. Well, it was nice that it was so close too. It seems like how
Yeah,
far away
yeah,
it was.
yeah. It was right in my backyard, 20-minute drive from my house.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So you said basically from 12 or 10 or 12 years old until basically college, you were always around there, right?
Yeah, I was around there a lot. Yeah, especially later, when I started studying with Ruth, she got together a percussion ensemble and did, things that she did classes on excerpts. And so I was there actually even more than just the one weekly lesson time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did you decide to go the orchestral route? Like, was that something you always wanted to do, or did you want to do something else before that?
Well, in high school, we had a jazz ensemble. And so I played jazz vibes in the jazz ensemble in high school.
Cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. Never did, I mean, I never did that well enough to do anything with it professionally, but I had a lot of fun with it. And I at the time, I didn't know that I wasn't going to be able to do anything with it professionally.
Nice.
And then I was sort of involved. I had one foot in the jazz department, one part of a foot, maybe a toe in the water, let's say, in the jazz department at Eastman.
Mhm.
And they had a lot of things aside from the jazz ensembles. They had arranging and a lot going on. And so I kind of got to know some of the students who were learning how to do film scoring and were writing stuff. And so they would have sessions where they had their pieces played at the school. So I got involved in that. I spent quite a lot of time doing that kind of stuff. And so I thought, since it was going to be so hard to get an orchestra job, maybe I would try to freelance and move to LA. I actually auditioned for the grad program at USC.
Oh, okay.
And but then I just kind of changed my mind. And I said, this freelancing thing is not going to work for me. I'm just not going to be good enough at the networking. And I'm going to be too nervous about being called for the next job. And I just need to have more stability in my life. So I'm just going to go and practice the excerpts as much as I can and just see if I can make something work that way. So that's what I did. I went, after I finished at Eastman, I went and I had a full scholarship at the University of Cincinnati. And I went there and just, put my focus on practicing.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like it worked out.
It worked out eventually, but there were lean years. That year at Cincinnati was, it was a lean year. I didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I didn't really, I had a loan that I was living on. And then, so then I actually didn't stay, because really more for economic reasons than anything else. And I took a job teaching in Midland, Odessa. An Eastman colleague of mine who he was there, and he got into the Phoenix Symphony.
Okay.
And so he left the position there. And somehow I think John Beck told me about it. I might have been back in Rochester for the summer, and maybe he said, "Hey, why don't you go down there?" And so I did.
Nice.
And I, and I was able to, spend a lot of time practicing. That job was like couple times a week, we practiced in orchestra, the Midland Odessa Symphony, practiced in an airplane hangar outside of the Midland Airport.
Yeah.
In the evenings, and in the days, we went into the schools, and I do not have an education degree, but to go into the schools and just teach privately, you don't need a degree. The kids just pay you
Yeah.
independently, but the band directors support you and stuff. So so I did that for a year, and the band directors were super nice, and I practiced at the schools after hours, and so I did a lot of practicing. And so then after that year, that's when I got into Florida.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was from there, right, that you got the Chicago?
Yeah. And after only a few months there, then I got into the CSO. Yeah. And I started in March 1986.
Nice. That's awesome. I love this story. Especially the airport hangar thing.
I know there's a detail you don't need, but
no, I think that's something I was like, oh, okay, nice. Well, I was just curious. I'm sure you have many, and this is just kind of one of my personal questions before we dive in. Do you have a memorable moment with the CSO? I'm sure you have a lot, but is there one that kind of stands out since your time starting there?
Oh, there are many. There were many. Yeah, there were many memorable moments, both serious and funny.
Okay. Either one you want to share, it's fine.
Probably, reaching back all the way to my first day in orchestra and getting to be, on the stage with the storied CSO brass, and it was really that's a serious one. It was really an incredible moment, incredible in a good way, to get to hear that and be part of that.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. Especially as an audience member, that's the other reason. Besides the percussion section, that brass section, it's you feel them in your face when you're in the concert. So I can't even imagine standing 20 feet from them. That's super cool. Well, anyway, one of the main reasons that I wanted to talk to you was about your percussion scholarship program. I've heard about it for a long time, and I actually just interviewed Josh Jones a couple.
No way!
Actually, a couple days ago.
Oh my goodness! Okay.
How that lined up, and he kind of reminded me, that he was in the program and all of that. So I'm just curious, what was your inspiration for starting that percussion scholarship program, and how has it evolved over the years?
Yeah, well, there were, in terms of way back when we started it 25 years ago now. Wow. I had been teaching part-time at Northwestern, and there were some things about that I was trying to improve that situation, because I was a part-time person. Al Payson was also part-time with me there. There were two part-time people, but no full-time person. Oh, okay. So I was trying to convince them to hire somebody full-time to just be there, either as the regular professor, and I would just be adjunct, which I was already just adjunct. But as you well know, in a big department, a major school, you just can't go into a percussion department once a week and teach lessons. There's so much going on. I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, I was trying to get them to do that, and they just resisted that, and so I had to resign. I just couldn't do it. The students were unhappy, and I just didn't want that. So at the same time that all was going on, we used to have, back when Al Payson was in the orchestra, we used to have a trio of Al, who was the leader, and then Tim Ross, and then when I joined, I think it was Al and Tim Ross. Then when I joined, they invited me to join their percussion trio. Nice. And the percussion trio went into the schools and presented programs in the Chicago public schools. Super. So two times a year, at times when the percussion would be off, then we scheduled these performances. They were back to backs at various schools, and the symphony sent us. It wasn't something that we, just did on our own. The symphony had probably 10 or more little groups that they sent out and arranged for these shows. And so sometimes we'd be in the school and the kids would come up, and it wasn't really part of our routine, but sometimes they would come up anyway and just ask to try out our instruments, or else they would do some sort of ceremony where they present the flag, or somebody, an administrator at the school would say, hey, what is the symphony doing, for little kids who want to study?
Yeah. And,
symphony didn't have a program like that then. It was just more outreach and performance stuff. So some of the kids that came up seemed pretty natural at percussion. And, I thought, gosh, it would be cool to, try to invite the kids in and, see kind of where it goes. And so I asked for a meeting with Henry Fogel, who was the president of the CSO at the time.
Okay.
And he was just all over it. I wrote up a small proposal, and went into his office, and two of the education people were there, and he said, okay, well, why are we here again? And I was kind of nervous, and I didn't remember what I was going to say, so I just handed him this thing, and he said, hey, I'm going to read this. He asked somebody to go get him some coffee, and well, he read it, and someone left and got coffee. And by the time they got back, he said, okay, this is a great idea. I really like this idea. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I just, I'm going to task the education people to make this happen. And that was it. So he did. And so we started out with, the idea I had, we'll start out with 15 kids that we select from various schools in Chicago. So we're going to get a nice diverse group of kids from lots of different neighborhoods. That was another thing. Sometimes we'd go to the schools and the administrators would say, well, the kids don't even go downtown or do anything outside their own neighborhood because it's not safe.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I thought, wow, that's no good.
Yeah.
So we invited, kids to come in, and by then my husband decided I'm just going to help as a volunteer. And so I kind of modeled this after the band directors in Midland, where they would select their drummers by meeting with them and seeing if they could tap their foot and play offbeats.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do to this day. See if they can kind of have a natural hand position, play with them a little bit, and then ask them to tap their feet. And basically, if they can do that, we invite them in.
Wow. Okay.
And it morphed over the years. So we started out with all these practice pads, and then we asked for a budget for marimbas. We bought 3 marimbas from NEC and had Gilberto from Century Mallet, restore them, and we send them home with the kids. So over the first 10 years or so, we probably have 20 marimbas.
Wow.
And so after a year of knowing the kids and, knowing they're going to prepare and come in and be very responsible, we send them home with a marimba. So we've got we've kind of got a dream teaching situation. Absolutely. Because it's free to the kids. Oh, kids do not pay a thing. So nothing for the lessons, nothing for the instruments, nothing for the books. So, in my early years of teaching, I was always kind of, even before the internet, I'd say, hey, you got to order this book, this certain book, and these certain sticks or mallets or something. And please bring them in next time so that we can get started with such and such.
Yeah.
So next time comes around and I say, okay, did the book and sticks come in? No, I don't have that yet. We can't get started. I couldn't work on it because I don't have it. Next week, same thing. 6 weeks later, still don't have anything. We don't have that problem now because we hand them the book, we hand them the sticks, and we say, that's it, work on it.
That's amazing. That's a dream.
Yeah, so it is.
Yeah.
It's a dream. Yeah, it's a dream teaching situation. And the best part of it for me is that it's like my husband's passion. He always said when he was growing up in school for music, if I have to teach, I'm going to quit. I don't want to teach. But his passion in life is the percussion scholarship program. He spends, all his time on the percussion scholarship program.
That's so cool.
So
yeah, that's amazing. And so it's you two that tag team it?
It's us that tag team it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so
And we, when Josh, when Josh graduated from high school, he stayed in town and he went to DePaul. So we were able to hire him as an additional teacher.
Oh, cool.
And so he came in for all 4 years of his school. I don't know how well you know him, but he's like the most generous person ever.
Sounds like it,
And
absolutely.
yeah. So he was never paid for all of the time that he put in. I mean, he was just always there. I could always count on him. Sometimes I get behind in my teaching. I'd say, Josh, I'm like a full lesson behind. Can you just take this lesson? And he would always be there to do that. But then, he got the scholarship, the fellowship in the Detroit Symphony after he graduated from college, which was great for him. But for us, then he left town and went to Detroit. So then we brought in another guy, a guy named Simone. And Simone is great because he's a timpani specialist.
Oh, cool.
And so we just hand off all the timpani whenever anyone needs to learn it. When we get to that point with the kids, they study with him. Yeah. So it works out.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah.
What of your students? I know Josh, but like, what are your students? Do they usually go on to pursue music, or what are they up to when they leave you?
Oh yeah, it varies widely. We've had a lot of kids go on in music. One of our early kids who actually, her family moved away when she was in high school, so she didn't finish with us, but she had been with us for at least, I think, 5-6 years. So she kept on with her percussion, and she's a band director in Dalton, Georgia. So we're really proud of her because she's doing so well with her. I know because, we had I'm sorry, I'm going on all this tangent, but we had a 20th anniversary, and so she came up with her family, and we got to reconnect with her, and I see on Facebook all the stuff that she's doing with her kids. So we're really, really proud of that. And and of course, Josh, graduated and principal percussionist in Kansas City Symphony. That's pretty gosh darn good. And then we have 2 kids that are in town. They went to Manhattan School. One went to Manhattan School and then finished up at Northwestern with a master's. And he's in town, and he's doing a lot of teaching at Merit School of Music, Midwest Young Artists, private teaching, freelancing type stuff. He just kind of finished up, and Eric just got his. I think he would just be finishing his master's in education.
Okay.
So he's student teaching,
cool.
And then we have some kids and of course, Marcy is in the New World Symphony.
Wow.
And so she went to Manhattan, got her bachelor's and master's, and then got into New World. So she's doing that. Yeah. And then we have several kids who are in school. 2 kids are in school for music ed, and one at Michigan, one at Miami. And then one is at Michigan for performance. So I hope and then of course Zuri was Zuri went through Michigan State, and I'm not sure where she is. I think she went to Toronto for a while. And then
so many.
Who else was I? Oh, Raj is an attending physician at New Haven, Yale, and orthopedic surgeon.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we got, I mean, I don't know if any of the kids are listening, they're gonna go, what, why did you forget me? But yeah, so we got, oh, well, and Yee was one of our first, superstars, and she's back in town. She went to Harvard, NEC, and then she ended up switching over and just using all her energy for Harvard.
Hmm.
She went into social studies, and she works with nonprofits to bolster sanitation issues in third world countries.
Wow.
So yeah, so we got all these like really super interesting friends now that used to be our students, but now they're our friends. So we're super lucky.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That's so many students. I would assume after 25 years, that's.
Yeah, I mean, that's only a handful that come to mind. I mean, sometimes we'll have somebody drop in and go, hey, and we'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah. Well, Jason is a kid that left our group. His family moved also out of the area when he was in junior high, but he moved to Pittsburgh, which is a great place for percussion, and he stayed with it and went to Carnegie Mellon for music. And he just got I think it's right now a temporary job, but he's in South Korea playing in orchestra. So yeah. So the kids, yeah. So we have a lot of kids that we're really proud of.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have any plans for the future with the program? Any activities coming up or any big changes that you see happening?
Yeah, well, we're just hoping to get through this time. We've been doing Zoom lessons from our basement. And so we've divided it up between Wednesdays and Saturdays. So Wednesday is drum day and Saturday is marimba day. And like I said, all the kids have instruments at their house. So that worked out. It's worked out actually really well in spite of the technical issues that we all know, go on. But we just hope to get back to kind of where we were and get back in person. In normal times, we do 2 recitals a year, August and March-ish, which we call Family Day. And so it's just a recital with the kids and everybody plays. But then we do 2 huge concerts, one in December and one in end of May, early June.
Okay.
Where we've got a lot of our own material, because we don't divide our group up into like the A group and the B group and the young group and the old group. We just sometimes we do, but for the big pieces we put everybody together.
Nice.
And so the younger kids play the simpler parts and the older kids play the more complicated parts, and so we have our own material. That my husband is friends with some jingle writers because he freelanced in his early years, and he used to work for back when there were jingles in Chicago. He used to do a lot of those, and so he was friends with some of the writers, and so they kind of he told them what we were getting started with, and so they wrote stuff for us with it earliest with Doug and me just playing basically separated piano parts, and then kids playing the simple percussion parts.
Sure.
Then as the kids improved, we just gave over those marimba parts to the kids that could do it, and kind of kept up like that.
I think
Sorry, that was probably more information than you need.
No, all the information is good. All of it's good. Well, continuing just a little bit more with this, specifically your Midwest clinic that you did. And for those of you that don't know about it, it was entitled How to Build a Culture of Excellence in Music and Citizenship in Your Ensemble. It's a case study with your percussion scholarship program. And I mean this when I say it. I heard about this clinic before I ever attended Midwest. And specifically my fiance was there, and she was blown away by the fact that you had these kids come up and here's what a beginner sounds like, and here's year 2, here's year 3, and here's what I do, and all those things. And she was just, every time we go to Midwest, she's just like, that clinic, it's like,
that is so nice. That is so nice of her to remember that. I think that was like 8 or 10 years ago, or something
think so,
like
like
that.
2013 or something like that, or was it?
Okay, okay.
Maybe,
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't actually remember.
Right. Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, um, that's so nice of you to remember it that way.
Oh yeah, and all the books that you talked about, she has them all,
Oh,
and it's cool because all the Arkansas directors kind of go together, and so they all got all the books, and like it's just I've heard a lot about this clinic when I first read
oh
it.
my gosh. Well, that reminds me of another kid because one of the young kids that played, Sean, played a duet with a little girl named Samantha, who unfortunately didn't stay with us. She was one of the few kids that we tried to talk into staying. Usually, if someone says, "Hey, this isn't for me," we go, "Okay, we understand," you know. But she had so much potential, but
Ah,
yeah, but that happens.
yeah,
But she played a duet with this other boy named Sean, and it was a rudimental duet, and they were, you know, quite little at the time. I think maybe sixth graders, and they really both had really good technique for
nice.
certainly for the age. And Sean is at Juilliard.
Oh
He
wow,
just finished his first year at Juilliard.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I can't
amazing.
believe I forgot to mention Sean.
Well, there's so many kids. I don't know how you remember. But they
Yeah.
this.
So
Oh, go ahead.
no. Yeah. So that's exactly what we did. We had the beginners play. Then I think we had Sean and Samantha, who were, you know, second year maybe at most.
Hmm.
I think, well, not at most. I think they were second year, and then we might with after that we start getting into mallets, and we, you know, have the kids start getting into the ragtime stuff and playing xylophone, and I mean they have marimbas, but the
Sure.
xylophone, two mallet pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, specific to that clinic and your teaching style in general, do you have like a set standard for the kids? So like by the end of this year, they need to be at this level, kind of like a barrier system, or is it more like everything's individually tailored to the students?
In the early years, it was like the second way, what you said.
Okay.
But over the years, we've come to be a little more rigid.
Okay.
So, you know, the first year they're in a class together and we play snare drum. We start stick control right away, you know, slowly, of course, but
Mm.
still, we got to do that stuff right away. We get into rudiments and, you know, obviously reading. And so the standard is they've got to be ready for their marimba by the summer.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
But I mean, we start one summer, then a whole year later, they've got to be ready for marimba. Meaning, you know, they've got to be able to play the role, understand the reading very well. Some of the rudiments, flams, paradiddles, stuff like that, got to have that really together. And yeah, so we've kind of morphed it into like the summer thing. We call it that. First, we interview the kids, then we bring them in, and then we call the whole first summer, the trial period.
Oh okay.
So, you know, by the end of the summer, gotta have a pretty good understanding of quarter notes and eighth notes and rests and be able to tap your foot and yeah. And really everyone who has shown up and had, you know, liked it well enough to put in some effort can do that.
Nice. And then I
Uh,
guess you have
yeah.
set for each year after that, like goals.
After that, it gets a little more murky, you
Okay,
know,
gotcha.
because, you know, now we know them, we know the family, we want to, you know, we want them to succeed,
Sure.
give them every second chance and every benefit of the doubt that we possibly can. And, you know, sometimes it works out. I would say most of the time that works out really, really well. And sometimes, you know, we'll end up with somebody who's junior, you know, already been here 5, 6 years, and that's kind of tough, you know.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
But you know, by then you've had like so many chances, and but some kids just take off, you know, and they just love it. Some kids just love it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
See, you know, the ones that are kind of tough are the ones that we're waiting for them to like decide they love it, and
Exactly.
it doesn't always happen. So
You can always hope, you know.
yeah, we always hope. We always hope. Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, just to wrap up the clinic part. For those that weren't there, do you recommend any specific books or exercises or anything like that for a beginning percussionist? Like, how would you tell a band director to say, "Hey, I got a class of beginning percussionists. They should start here." What would you tell them?
Well, I would, recommend they start the way we start with the kids. And, it just goes back to my first lessons with Mr. Beck when I was in, 12 years old. He said, you gotta play 100 strokes with each hand. Make sure you are using a lot of lift and that it's really smooth and relaxed.
Mm.
And so, that's the way we start. We start with 100 strokes with each hand. And, I still start when I got into the CSO, when I was warming up, I was doing my 100 strokes with each hand. And people were going like, what the hell are you doing? I'm doing my 100 strokes. Come on.
Gotta warm up.
Yeah, yeah. So we start that way. And I truthfully tell the kids, I still, do that to this day. So, but then, of course, we start with a book like the Haskell-Haar book. I know that's an old-fashioned book, but we still use pages from that book. And we use pages from another book, which is a very similar style. It's published by Alfred. I think it's by Saul Feldstein. There's book 1 and book 2.
Okay.
Where, you've got a line of the same bar over and over again. You've got another line with the same bar, easy bar over and over again. You've got like 6 or 7 lines like that, and then a combination study at the end.
Got you.
Yeah. So our book is like that. We actually have the books on file, but we don't use everything from every book. So we intersperse those things into 3-room binders. So because we found that with lots of different situations, but in the early situation, we found that both books, like that old Haskell-Haar book and even the Feldstein book, and there's another one called Breeze Easy, which is how I learned, whether they're designed that way with easy stuff and then a combination study. But when we get to the 8th rest, there isn't enough material in any of those books for that. We want to stay on the 8th note and 8th rest for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
Because that's where we get to that offbeat foot tap thing, and we want to really solidify that technique. And so we combine some of the books to have more material here, maybe a little less material there. But I mean, once we get to playing and reading, we get into that stick control book, and we stay with that. We have a lot of different material. We do like 4 of those a week.
Great.
And it takes years to go through that book, just playing 4 of them a week.
Sure.
But then we have more books that are like that, and the accent book. And, but yeah, just getting started, 100 strokes, quarter notes, quarter rests, reading stuff, and away you go.
Yeah.
And as soon as possible, even in the stick control book, number 5 is the paradiddle.
Okay.
So you're already on the paradiddle, very, very soon, and then you can go into the rudiments and the long roll, and yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's definitely great for people to kind of hear what you do and kind of model that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, with beginning percussion, it's easy to get it, especially in a band director kind of situation. It's easy to get, okay, here's the band part, and sort of skip wait, we've got to get the hands moving. We've got to get the wrist, we've got to get moving so that we can develop the real meat and potato percussion techniques.
Yeah.
And, don't just get into another thing we do that I think is important educationally is we stay on the open roll and the rudimental playing a long time. 4 years at least before we even touch the orchestral roll. because we find it's much easier to crush that thing down than it is to get the control of, the double strokes.
Absolutely. I found that's the hardest thing to teach. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah, the double strokes. It's just a feel thing, and you gotta just keep trying until you get that feel, and then it's easy.
Yeah.
But if you crush that roll down before you get the double strokes, then it's hard to get the double strokes. And the double strokes, as we all well know, are so important for many things other than the roll. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's your control right there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for telling me about that. I appreciate it. I have a couple questions, or maybe one question from the audience. So I post online and I ask them, like, "Hey, anyone have any questions for you?"
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this one, I think is really great. Someone asked, "How can we as percussion educators get a percussion scholarship program started in every city?"
Oh, that's a great question. Um, One of the things that, that it was so fortunate for us that we had the support of Henry Fogel, and therefore the support of the CSO and the resources from the CSO education department.
Absolutely.
So, that's a thing that is, I think really propelled us into, set us up for success, let's say. But there is a new program in Montreal that's sort of modeled after our program, only it's for cello.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they went and got funding from various sources, not from the Montreal Symphony, although one of the teachers is, at least one of the teachers is a member of the Montreal Symphony, but they went out and got outside funding.
Great.
Yeah, and they just had a Zoom recital that they invited me to, which I enjoyed thoroughly.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think, the first step is to get the funding, because even if the teachers want to volunteer, you still got to have you've got to have the instruments and the sticks and the books and all that. And it's without that, I mean, asking people to buy it is certainly can be done, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. But I hope that, those that are ambitious will do that. I mean, it can be done with, you don't have to start with 20 marimbas. You can start with, I wouldn't even buy snare drum kits. I would just buy practice pads, stands, wire music stands, and sticks. Okay. And there might be foundations. For example, Zildjian has helped us out, where they'll have sticks. They used to have sticks. I don't know if they still do, but they used to have sticks. And I'm a close college friend with Keith from Zildjian.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so he's like, "Hey, we can't sell these sticks. We're just going to give them to you guys so we can use those with beginners." Yeah. So, sticks are not that expensive. You could probably, it probably could be done to find an individual who will buy sticks and somebody else who will buy some practice pads and stands and get it going, and then have something to show and go to foundations and say, "Hey, we've got 10 kids here. They're really working hard. What we want to do more for them. Here's what we want to do. We want to give them marimbas. Look at the PSP site. Look what they're doing. They have marimbas. We could do this too."
Yeah.
And maybe get started that way.
Yeah. No, that's great. So definitely just hit the ground and start asking people, but when they do come, make sure you have something to show and say,
maybe have something to show, have real kids there.
Yeah.
Wow, these kids have really, they've worked. And this is something that's going to be meaningful to them if we can continue with it.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you for that. One of the last questions I usually ask everyone is, what life lessons, that can be music related or not, have you learned along the way that really helped shape you as a person?
From my teaching, life lessons.
It could be any life lessons that you experienced, like from beginning to now.
I don't even know where to start. I'm still learning. I'm still, be more specific.
How about non-music related life lessons, like interactions with people? What interactions with people in your life have helped shape you?
Well, I think there have been many lessons that I've learned, and one lesson that I wish that I had learned earlier was to be less direct and more diplomatic with people. You know, when I was younger, I used to just sort of blurt things out and not really think about, like, in an empathetic way, like, how is that going to make this person feel?
Oh, okay.
And I mean, that's really bad. And I used to think, when I was younger, I just it was hard for me to see, like, the other side of the story. And now I think I'm a lot better at seeing. And then from teaching, I must say the life lessons that I learned from teaching, I learned from, the parents of the kids that we've had, and, their dedication and how they handled their kids. And I think that that experience helped me to be a better parent.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I usually end with this too. What activities or projects do you have coming up that you want listeners to know about? What can they check out?
Well, right now, I mean, again, I hope that our group gets back in person, and I hope I get to go back to work.
Hmm.
We'll have a concert we'll have a
concert.
We'll have a Zoom concert with the kids, but it's going to be more like a recital. It's not going to have ensembles because we're not in person yet. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not like some of my younger colleagues. That when I first got into the orchestra, I played a lot of chamber music, and I did, everything I could do with music.
Sure.
But then when my son was born, I kind of did a 180, and I still played in orchestra, which is a full-time job. But, then I used all of the rest of my time to try to be a good parent. But now my son is grown, and he doesn't live in the area anymore. So I'm still like, maybe I should get a dog or something. I don't know. So I don't have a lot of stuff for you. Like, I haven't written a song, and I haven't, planned a thing. But sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Another device went off in my house. Yeah, so I'm just hoping to get back to normal. That's my hope for the immediate few months, because I hope that we get back a little bit to regular times.
Absolutely. Is the concert for the PSP kids, is that going to be online for people to watch?
It'll be online, yeah. So I can send you a link.
Yes, please.
And if you want to share, I mean, I don't have it yet. It'll be, I believe it's June 6th.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And it'll be June 6th. And usually it's, it's actually not even live. We have the kids record their stuff. And then my husband, Doug, he puts it all together in one long thing.
Sure.
That we all watch. But yeah, I'd love to send you a link to it once we get that going. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll definitely post it online for sure.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know it's you have a lot going on, but I thank you for being